Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Ballerina, number 2 would be Lilo and Stitch, number 3 would be Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, number 4 would be Karate Kid Legends, and number 5 would be Final Destination Bloodlines. And man, I only got 3 out of 5 of my predictions right. A lot of you did guess correctly. You had the right instincts, and I was like so tempted to be like, well, maybe Lilo and Stitch could cling on, but I think I was just hanging on to the goodwill of like where the John Wick franchise had been, like as far as like their box office performance, that I didn't consider maybe Ballerina would not do as much as those ones. But before we get into that, we have to talk about number 1, which was of course Lilo and Stitch. This one not having an over 50% drop this weekend. We kind of talked about last weekend how this and Mission Impossible, they had their big, record-breaking Memorial Day opening weekend, and then for week 2 it was kind of like, over 50% drop. We're back to 40%, so it's like, okay, and it's already going to be on the fast track here to reaching $1 billion, as we've kind of talked about before. People are already estimating like, yeah, it's in the spot to do that. Made $32 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $335 million. So for live action remakes, that places it $1 million over Alice in Wonderland. Needs $9 million until it gets past the Jungle Book, and then it's in the top 5 right now. So once it gets past Jungle Book, it only needs like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and then The Lion King. The fact that this one, like I've been saying, it's kind of shocking that this is the one that's really connecting. I guess as far as like childhood nostalgia, you got the '90s with your Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and Lion King, and then some time has passed, we're kind of in the 2000s kind of thing there. So maybe that, I say maybe, that's probably definitely what's happening here. And then worldwide it is sitting at 772 million. So that's 14 million over Maleficent, and now needs 179 million until the Jungle Book. Jungle Book is the one to beat for this film. But, okay, now that we've talked about that, let's dive into the interesting one, which is Ballerina. I say interesting just because it is the new release, and like I was saying in the intro a little bit, I think I was relying a bit too much on each opening weekend for the John Wick films as they went on. They just got bigger and bigger. So I think I had estimated, like, well, Ballerina, it may not be as big as 4, but it's definitely going to coast on at least, like, 3, like 3-ish numbers, maybe a little below. I wasn't really expecting a 25 million opening, which isn't, like horrible. The budget of this film is around like 80 to 90 million dollars from what I've seen, and then worldwide it only bumps up to 51 million. That can change obviously in the next couple weeks, or maybe not. Just keep your fingers crossed. We're really in kind of a wait and see kind of situation with this film, but it's not necessarily a fantastic opening. Like you could have some legs and you double whichever number here for the budget in theaters at least. It's not particularly great. For the Wick opening weekends, it is 11 million over what the first film opened with back in 2014, but it is 5 million below Chapter 2. And then, if you do look at the other ones, it's 31 million below Parabellum and 48 million below 4. So, not too great, like in consideration of like, I think at this point, if you have John Wick slapped onto your film, you should probably not even just like the title, like he's in it, they kind of promote like he's in it, that character, you should probably, I don't know, like at least get to Parabellum, like get close to that. I'm not sure, especially kind of with a budget like this. We know how quickly some things can drop off, and people have been enjoying this. I believe the Cinema Score, rating was good, and Rotten Tomatoes has been solid. But I feel like, once again, not to get too like conspiratorial, but I feel like I've said this about some other recent film. I feel like this is one of those movies that people are saying like, oh, it's a good time. Yeah, it's really entertaining and pretty fun. May not be my favorite Wick movie, but and I feel like the holdover may not be as strong, especially because, gasp, How to Train Your Dragon is next weekend, in case anyone didn't know. Fast approaching, 28 years later is coming out. I feel like I heard somewhere that pre-sales for that are pretty good. And the trailer's got people buzzing, so that's around the corner as well. I mean, we're not even in July yet, where Jurassic World is the first movie you get, and then Superman. It could hold over well. It could continue to grow and find its audience. doesn't seem like this is like a solid enough start for that, and I'm not sure if the word of mouth is so spectacular where that could happen. The budget is low enough though where if they do manage to catch a wave, they could be in a good spot. As far as Len Wiseman, we'll go to that director. Len Wiseman's opening weekends, it is 4 million over Underworld, the first movie, and it's about on par with Total Recall. We'll get like specifics when like the official numbers come out. Right now it's looking like it's about to do on par. It is 1 million below Underworld Evolution though, and 8 million below Die Hard 4. So for Len Wiseman, this is like pretty on track for him. You know what I mean? And he needs 26 million until it outgrosses Underworld even. So it'll probably do that. And then jumping back to John Wick numbers domestically real quick, needs 18 million until that original film. So it's going to clear that one at the very least, maybe 2 if things go well. I don't know, man. Worldwide, like I said, it's sitting at 51 million, so needs 36 million until it gets to the first John Wick. And then for Len Wiseman, it needs 44 million until it gets to Underworld. So yeah, I hate to once again pull out the we have to wait and see card on this one. I'm sorry this isn't like an immediate kind of thing like Lilo and Stitch was, or with Mission Impossible, where it's like, yeah, the budget is really high, it's probably not going to like double it, but you know what I mean? Nothing like too official here. It's just kind of like, oh, well, we'll see how it holds over. Opening to 25 million, any drop off at that point, unless it's still in the 20s, it's not going to look too great either way. So, especially with How to Train Your Dragon coming up. Either way, we've talked about this. So, interesting movies out of the way. Let's blaze through the rest. I'm kidding. Number 3 is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Like I said, this and Lilo and Stitch shared the fact that they have a bit of a better hold this weekend than last. This one now has 15 million added to its name, so it's sitting at a total of 149 million domestically, and it did outgross Mission Impossible 3 by 16 million. It just needs enough momentum to get 23 million, then it outgrosses the entire domestic run of Dead Reckoning, which if it made 15 million this weekend, maybe it's not immediately next weekend, but the weekend after, I think it could outgross Dead Reckoning, and that's at the very least, because I feel like they look at Dead Reckoning as like this box office failure, even if it's not 100% the case. I mean, it, kind of, sort of, there's exceptions to everything with that one. I feel like I even talked about that when the movie came out, the multiple asterisks you put at the end of that movie. But, if they can outpace it domestically, that's pretty stellar. And then worldwide, it is sitting at 450 million. They have cleared the at least the maximum of what their initial production budget is by 50 million at this point. So yeah, and the fact that they've outgrossed Mission Impossible 3 here by 51 million, and they only need 7 million now until the original film, I think they're on a solid enough course here. Like we've said forever now, they're probably not going to break even or be a big profit in the theaters, but this is at least a good jumping off point for when they do come home to Blu-rays and video on demand and other merch and stuff like that. So I think we're in a solid spot here. Honestly, it's doing a little better than I think I initially thought, which is kind of weird to say because these movies have, grossed, millions upon millions of dollars, but I think for whatever reason, my mindset was it's opening up against Lilo and Stitch. Oh my God, it's going to get crushed and people are going to forget about this and nobody cares. Oh my God. At the very least, there is an audience here. You cannot deny that. Number 4 is Karate Kid Legends. This one not holding over very well, opening to 8.7 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 35 million. Still has not outgrossed part 3 yet of the Karate Kid franchise, needs 3 million to do so. Worldwide, it is sitting at 74 million, so places it 16 million away from the original film's run, but also more importantly, it is also 16 million away from doubling its 45 million initial production budget. It has not done that yet, so still has a ways to go. But yeah, How to Train Your Dragon is next week. Not to keep going back to that, but yeah, I don't see Karate Kid surviving in that kind of climate. I just do not think that that's possible. Oh man, so sorry. Number 5 is Final Destination Bloodlines, making 6.5 million, adding to a domestic total of 123 million, and then worldwide it is sitting at 257 million. At this point, it has made 5 times its initial production budget of 50 million, on its way to making 6 times if they can get to 300 million worldwide. That's just really stellar that this one is really making waves as far as like, another horror franchise making a lot of money. Sinners is an original film, that doesn't count. But this is just really cool. For whatever reason, I did not expect it with Final Destination because it had been a bit, but clearly people were waiting. For the domestic list for horror films, it outgrossed The Nun by 6 million, and it's a couple 100,000 over Nope. It needs 6 million now until The Ring 2002. Currently, it is in the top 20 highest grossing domestic runs for a horror movie of all time. Worldwide, with the $257 million, it did outgross quite a few other horror movies, so bear with me here. Annabelle Comes Home by $26 million, Alien Covenant by $19 million, Resident Evil Retribution by $17 million, The Ring 2002 and the original Blair Witch by $9 million, Get Out by $5 million, Us and Halloween, the new one, by $2 million, and it's $1 million over the original Annabelle, and it now sits behind A Quiet Place Day 1 by $4 million. That's one that was a big hit last year. So currently, for worldwide, it is about to hit the top 20. It's just a couple spots away at this point. That's so cool. That's just, like I was saying before, I wouldn't expect the Final Destination was the one to really, break through, but here it is, and that's just really stellar. Number 6 is The Phoenician Scheme. I figured, in general, Wes Anderson releases, they usually open in limited, so they only open to a couple 100,000 anyways, and then they kind of expand, but they don't really, or at least they don't, like they used to, make a whole lot of money. So the Phoenician Scheme opening to 6.2 for its, expansion here is not too terrible. Worldwide bumps it up to 18 million. As far as the initial production budget being 30 million, maybe not too good on that end. But as far as Wes Anderson's filmography, it did outgross Bottle Rocket already by 6 million. It's 5 million away from Darjeeling Unlimited. And then for the worldwide numbers, it's 14 million over Bottle Rocket and 5 million away from Rushmore. So it's gonna do what a Wes Anderson movie does these days. Is essentially the takeaway that I'm getting here. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much more to add. So, yeah, it's not really breaking a whole lot of records. It's not totally flopping, because I feel like Asteroid City, correct me if I'm wrong, memory's a little hazy, but I feel like Asteroid City didn't even make a whole lot of waves at the box office. I feel like it made enough to cross over the initial production budget, but it wasn't like you wouldn't look at that like how Grand Budapest made a whole lot of money. I don't know. It just seems to be doing what a Wes Anderson movie does. Number 7 is Bring Her Back, making $3.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $14 million. The worldwide total, unfortunately, is not high enough where I would want to, break that down for you. So it's not even, it's still not too close to passing over the initial production budget of $20 million. So obviously nowhere near to doubling it as well. And then as far as the Filippos Talk to Me, it is $34 million away from that domestically. So yeah, it seems like there are people that, are going to see and are talking about how fucked up it is and and all this stuff, but it just doesn't seem like this one is really making that connection that Talk to Me did when it premiered, which is kind of interesting, because I swear they promoted the fact that it's from those directors, and I'm sure they promoted it on their channel where they're popular. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure, why this one in particular isn't, because I feel like, look at the success of, Final Destination and Saw are kind of they kind of blend. Sometimes they're more goofy over the top, and then other times it's real fucking nasty and kind of realistically nasty. So as far as people being weirded out potentially by what they might see, and to be fair, yeah, Bring Her Back has some fucked up images in that, but I never really looked at that as a deterrent for some horror audiences, at least. I don't know. We don't need to talk about the specifics of that. Number 8 is Dan DeDan, Evil Eye. I was kind of worried because I feel like I saw this coming up. I was like, oh no, another one that I didn't predict. It's gonna get into the top 5. Not this time. Made $3.09 million. Not sure what the budget of this thing is. Not sure if it's made any other money anywhere because I couldn't find that info. But domestically, it made $3.09 million. Good on ya. Thanks for not fucking up my top 5 predictions, even though I still didn't get them perfectly correct. Number 9 is Sinners, making 2.9, adding to a domestic total of $272 million. For Ryan Coogler, it is $181 million away from Wakanda Forever now. For horror films domestic list, it is $1 million away from Jaws. So just so close to breaking into the top 3, which would then be It Chapter 1 and The Sixth Sense, which I've endlessly talked about. How I think it should be on the numbers.com's list, and it's not. Whatever. Worldwide, it is sitting at $357 million. So for Coogler, it is $502 million away from Wakanda Forever. And then for the horror movie list there, it is $5 million away from The Nun. So it hasn't outgrossed anything for either list. But, it's about to exit the top 10 looking pretty good either way, so it doesn't really matter. And then closing out the video, number 10, Thunderbolts, exiting the top 10 looking okay. Sinners, it's oh my god, look at what they did. And Thunderbolts, even though technically, if you just look at the numbers, they've managed to keep ahead of Sinners' worldwide total, it's still budget wise and kind of cultural conversation wise, I don't know. Either way, Thunderbolts made $2.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $186 million. For the MCU, it did pass by Black Widow by $3 million, but unfortunately, it is behind Brave New World by $14 million. Exiting the top 10 without outgrossing that film, that is a bummer. Worldwide, it is sitting at 374, so it is about 14 million over the doubling point of its initial production budget. Like I've been theorizing, I feel like this one's in a better spot where you can look at the doubling point rule and go yeah, that's probably accurate to its break-even point or close enough. But then again, I did see a post that might have alluded to the fact that it's going to lose over 100 mil, which is, yeah, like I said, we can make all these rules and we can guess all these things, but, Hollywood accounting is going to do what it does. You know what I mean? You never quite know. Oh, well, I think it has enough goodwill based off of its theatrical run with good word of mouth that eventually people will give it a chance at home and be like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. Similar, I think, to what the Dungeons and Dragons movie did. Anyways, for the MCU worldwide, it did outgross Captain America: The First Avenger by $4 million. It is sitting behind Black Widow here by $5 million. It may get that $5 million, but it will be out of the top 10 at this point. And I salute you, Thunderbolts. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. I don't know where to predict Life of Chuck, because honestly, I feel like it hasn't really been marketed that much. Obviously, a bunch of film fans are going to see it. I've already seen it at the Regal Mystery Movie. It's pretty good. Would recommend you see it. So obviously, a bunch of film fans will seek it out, but I don't know if that's enough to squeak it into the top 5. I don't know, because I feel like it hasn't been marketed that much, and it's a Stephen King short story, but it's not one of his horror ones, and you can't even really say it's as straightforward as Stand By Me, one of his dramas is. So it's an interesting little movie, not in a bad way, but just as far as a selling point. I could see some people maybe struggling to do that on the marketing end. So I'm not going to predict that in here, but number 1, I am going to predict How to Train Your Dragon, obviously. Number 2, Lilo and Stitch. Number 3, Ballerina. And then this might be a bit of a reach, but I think number 4 could be Materialist, just based off of, hey, there's already some talk around town that this is the rom-com to see the chemistry. Oh my gosh, it's Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans. Oh my god, you love these guys. So I feel like it might not make a whole lot just because these kind of movies don't really that much anymore, but I could see it breaking through a bit more and potentially squeaking above my number 5 prediction, which is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Anyways, what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.